Hello, and welcome to another episode of Anomalies. I'm Dan Hall. This is a program about things seen out of the corner of one's eye, about shadows and what lurks in those shadows. This is a program about the unexplained and the unexplainable.
Tonight, we're very fortunate to have as our guest Marie Muller.
Marie-France Muller.
Oh, Marie-France Muller. I have to make sure I've got the right name there. Marie is a special guest for us for a couple of reasons. She's a visitor to our country. She's from Toulouse in France. Is that correct, Marie?
Yes, around Toulouse, yes.
Around Toulouse. But that's not the real reason that she's a special guest for us, is that she's had many experiences that we would classify as being paranormal.
Yeah.
Experiences including contact with UFOs, contact with occupants of UFOs, and a lot of other interesting aspects to her life that we're going to get into. And we're also pleased to join us a guest that we've had on another program, Aleta DeBee, who's a MUFON field investigator and deals with people who contact MUFON who have experienced contact with other beings. And Marie and Aleta are here primarily because they're friends and both know each other pretty well and know about their situation. So we'll welcome you to our program. Thanks for being on board. And of course we have Dave Jinks, our other co-host. So let's start off with a question. Okay?
I've got a question. Can I jump in here?
All right, go ahead.
Is DeBee French or not? It sort of sounds
As I
French,
understand
but
it's drunken Irish, where an uncle or somebody changed his name one night when he was drunk. So it may sound French, but it really isn't quite.
Sounds French, but the B I had questions about. Anyway.
That was a pretty important question, though.
Yes, it was.
So let's continue with the important stuff.
No, did you want to go ahead? You can start.
Oh, no, you had a question.
Okay.
Go ahead, Dan.
Well,
we've all got questions, though.
So you've had a lot of strange experiences. Would that be fair to say that?
Oh, yes, I had that all my life long, yes.
Okay.
It seemed normal to me for a very long while.
Right.
It took me time to realize that it was not.
Tell our listeners the story about what your mom said about you.
Oh,
when
yes.
you were born.
She used to laugh at me saying that she got the feeling to be a hen who had laid a duck's egg.
A duck's egg. So you were
So I said,
different.
why do you tell me that, Mom? She said,
Yeah.
because you're a bit unusual.
It's a bit unusual. What's the first thing you remember, and maybe the age that you were associated with that memory? What's the first strange thing you remember in your life that didn't seem quite ordinary?
No, the very first thing is simply that in my life just before this one, I was living in the same place, same city, northeast of France, and was killed in a bombing in 1940 at the age of 11. And my memory comes from this life. For me, it's just one. So that's already a bit unusual, I know, but it occurred to many children who died, who were killed before being a teenager. So that was a bit unusual because it took me much time to be accepted by my family when I used to say such memories. And in fact, it was family close to mine. And I was resembling so much their little girl that my mom had decided never to show me, so it would not traumatize them. You know, in the 40s, in France, speak of reincarnation, nobody knew what it meant and that it ever existed, so it was really impossible. And I was given some blue pills when I was young to quiet down my imagination, they said. So it did not, of course, it didn't work. So that was the beginning, and at the moment my mom had to accept the idea because, of course, one day we met the other family, and I said, oh, Mom and Dad, that was something.
So this was an actual memory that you had and assumed, accepted as just a normal memory.
Normal for me, my life began
expand.
much before. Yes, and I remember the other side, remember the decision made to come back, which was not mine, and so on.
So do you remember the interim period?
Oh,
well, that's what I'm fascinated to hear about. The interim Because that's a lot of what Dan and I and Aleta, we're seeking to find is this life finite? Is it infinite? Does it continue beyond? Does it, does it have a beginning and an end? Obviously on Earth it appears to, but you're a unique case where that may not be a hard and fast rule. Your lives may continue here, but you did have an experience between the past.
Yes. As most children who died have, because I met another one, was a young client of me, and I could help him. Well, he had to die, and so
walk through that,
and he could come back, and we could talk too. So, yes, I didn't tell you.
And that period, can you walk us through how that proceeded, how it felt? Was there time as we know it here? How do you feel and remember that?
It's so pleasant to pass away. It's not difficult at all. It's pleasant. So, anyway, you feel much better when it's done. Yeah, it's really, yes. You have not the way of this body. You can do so many other things, and it's really a very good time. And in fact, my own experience was with other children. I think it was a bit special. We were in a special place with lots of other children who had been killed, who had died at that period. And there were numerous. We got courses. We were trained to do something different on Earth after that. So I remember these courses. We all hated school, and we enjoyed so much this kind of school we had on the other side. And we were told so many things. And when it was decided to come back, none of us wanted, of course. We were pretty well over there, and it was fun. We were used to train the new coming ones. For instance, I remember to tell them, you can go through this wall. Oh, no, it will hurt me. Yes, run. Go through such things. It looks very weird, but for us it was a play, a game. And that was, for instance, the first exercise for the coming new ones.
And so how did that feel compared to what we call reality here? Did you feel the passage of time also? I mean, it seemed very real. It seemed just like a college course today, or
more real than here, I would say.
And how long did that period last, as far as what it
felt? For me, I died in I think it was in June 40. I have the dates written somewhere, because it was a specific bombing of a train and during the war. And I came back in January 45. So it was a rather short period, but most of us had to come back. We did not agree at all. We were a bit pushed to do it, chores kind of.
So it was a 5-year period that had passed?
Yes.
I'm still stuck on this. Did it feel like 5 years to you?
No.
I mean,
not at all.
You started and then your new mission became...
Yeah, you have no notion of time.
Right.
And I guess in my life now, I have no notion of time, which is not helpful at all for me. And I guess it's because of such... I think that this kind of experience of these past life memories and all changed my way of living here after that. It makes it a bit difficult because I couldn't bear, for instance, I give you an example. I waited until I was something like 20 to tell my mom that she traumatized me, telling me certain things when I was a baby, and she had to change me, putting clothes and all. And she was absolutely amazed, because simply my dad was taken to a concentration camp during the time she was pregnant. So he never came back. And I was their first child, and only one, so. And she used to say things, oh, you are my little dad, and so. And I got the feeling she was not loving me, but loving me because I was my dad's daughter. Mm-hmm. So and I had the mind of a girl, of an 11 years old girl. Not of a young baby, a few weeks, So that made things a bit difficult for me when I was small, because I kept this 11 mind until I was definitely 11, and even at school suddenly I had to work, which was a bit funny.
Wow. So Marie, one question that comes to mind here is that your first memory of something strange was a past life.
Yeah.
So would you say that we all have past lives?
Oh, sure.
And if that's true, why do we not remember that?
Honestly, I think it's a protection. I can remember other past lives. I never try to force things because for me it's shown when I need it. And most of the time when I need it, it's not compulsory, something really pleasant. So when I have to know a past life, it's shown in a dream for 3 nights. 3 nights of you wake up exhausted because you are fed up with that, except 2 which were really great. I love that. But well, and so it teaches you something. I get the feeling that you need to remember some past life because they are really linked to this life. We don't need to remember everything. It would be too much, useless. So it's like if past life were not like a file with pearls, as some people think, but it's all mixed up, you know, and some are touching each other's and touching this life now, and this is interesting to know, could explain a couple of issues or gifts you have, lots of stuff, and that is interesting in any way. The others are totally different because we can't in one human life cope with all that stuff. So,
would you encourage people to undergo past life regression?
I did it on some clients who wanted that, and it works. Sure, it works, but I stopped after a while because I thought it was useless and not the right way. Anyway, which is sure is that if you do that, you have not to regress the life before and the life before. No, not that way, but which life is useful for me now.
And the reason I asked that is I know someone who had a physical problem, and it had to do with they had a pain in their side, and the doctors couldn't really find a cause for the pain.
Yes. Sure.
And when they did a past life regression, they found out that in a previous life they were stabbed by a spear in the exact same spot where that
true.
pain was. So it was helpful for them to understand what was going on with them.
Yes, but you know, in that case, you don't ask to go to the life before. You ask to go to the life which is the cause of the issue. That's useful, but not more.
Yeah, it was useful for them. Aleta?
And I have a question. This is Aleta. Do you think that children that have died early on in their lives remember that life in the next life more easily than we as adults do?
It's totally different. What I understood of that is something that Max Handel and Rudolf Steiner had written already, so it spoke to me when I could read it again, and I could verify that with a couple of children who came back. When you die before being a teenager, you keep your etheric body. You come in the same kind of shape. You look like the old one. You resemble to. So you don't do the whole job. When somebody dies, pass away as an adult, in adulthood, you have to leave this body, the etheric body, the emotional body. All these bodies were made of. You have to leave all that. It's long process. And then you have to build one again. When you die as a child, you just leave that. You keep everything else. That was it much easier to remember and to come back with same thinking, same ways, and sometimes same family or clothes. It's totally different. I guess it's why we had been trained within a group of children, because we were same situation. I remember, I was an MD. I was, because in France they don't like my methods. I am more alternative than, yes. So I had one time a child, he was 7 years old, leukemia, and I could see him only when it was much too late. We couldn't do anything else. So I could simply accompany him. He was so cute and he knew exactly what was going on. He was very conscious. And I could help the parents too. And there was he had a younger brother. And when he passed away, the younger brother, who was only 5 at that time, got messages from his brother and could even write. He knew hardly how to write, but he could write, automatic writing. And about 2 or 3 years after that, suddenly I got a message, I come back. And so she was pregnant, the mom 1 month later. They wanted absolutely to give the same name. I persuaded them not to do that. that it was a different life and so. And the younger brother was so happy. And I could talk with him later on, and he remembered perfectly the two lives, so the preceding life. So it occurs
Why
quite...
do you think that this is so difficult for adults in particular to believe what you're saying? Not these adults here, because I think we all agree there's obviously something to, because there's a good body of evidence that shows this is real. But why do you think it's in general is so difficult to accept?
Because of religions, most of time.
Well, I was wondering, is it because of what we're taught to believe?
My first family, though they accepted me totally, and I spent so much time with them, never agreed with the idea I was their daughter. Except maybe when my first mom died. She was far from my place at that time. I knew she was very old and sick, but we didn't know exactly what was coming on. But we were still in a relationship with, my elder sister of the first life, which was my mother's best friend. I guess it's very complicated to catch, but well, that's it. And so they had a phone call the night before she passed away, and she said, so my ex-sister, my mom was so happy because she feels it's a question of ours that she will pass away probably, and she could see her husband, she could see the children. They had lost 5 children during the war. On 7, so that was very difficult. And she said, I could see all the children, but I couldn't see my daughter. So that was that was interesting. Yes, I guess she could have seen me anyway, but no, she did not. But the next morning, I was waking up, we had opened the light and we were talking simply with my husband at the time, still in bed, and I felt her come. She hugged me so dearly. And simply a bit, half an hour later, we had a phone call telling us that she had just passed away. So, that's how it works. Anyway, it's not useful to believe in that or not. Everybody will have the experience one day. Simply it makes life and death a bit different, and you don't care about dying anymore, most of all. Not afraid.
Because it's not the end. It's a transition to another... And
it's something comfortable. What is fearful is how I will die.
Yeah.
That's the way you do.
You mentioned something about you were dealing with this little boy that had leukemia, and he came to you too late in his disease process for you to help him. And so that implied that you have some healing abilities. That you're a natural healer. I think I've heard...
Yes, I was when I was young, yes. But it was too difficult for me to cope with that when I was 16, and I decided to study medicine too, so it was possible to hide in a way.
Tell us more about your ability to heal others. Yes, I'm very interested in that. What do you do? Yeah, just talk about that.
My mother had some abilities of that kind she used on me. I had a very poor health when I was young, and she used to meet some healers too, and who decided one day to take me as an apprentice, I think, when I was something like 10. Both said, two of them said that I was gifted for that, and so I loved it. I enjoyed that. I was spending a day every week learning how to heal people with them. And when I began that, I got dreams. I was taught lots of stuff by dreams in my life. So I was very used to follow my dreams, listen to them, because when I did not, I always regretted a lot. So of course, when you do that a number of times after that, you say, okay, I do, or I don't, but well. So that's very important to me too. And in dreams, I was taught many ways of healings, with my breathing a certain way, some stuff that I didn't hear elsewhere, which would allow me at that time to send healing long distance quite easily. But when I looked somebody very special, and I could not bear that. So when I was a teenager, 15, 16, I loved helping people. I enjoyed that. But I didn't want to be somebody special. I couldn't bear it. I felt it was a very big danger for me to lose myself, in a certain way. So I decided not. I asked to stop. It didn't stop for a long while. I insisted a lot, really. And that's why I studied medicine. But, well, lots of medical people in my lineage, too, of doctors. So probably it was something like that. But
so you were a medical doctor? And
yes, but it didn't last long because I got a leukemia too. I was supposed to die 3 months later and got to a hospital and get shot to feel nothing, no painkillers and so. And I had met somebody who was a vegetarian. At that time it was something I didn't know the word. Simply, it did not exist. She told me what she would do in my place as a boof nonsense. At that time, for instance, northeast of France, I was ordered to eat raw meat 4 times a day. I enjoyed that, so no problem. I had never tried a vegetable or a fruit. I hated that, simply the right diet. But it was. So I was eating raw meat and sugar things. Guess. I was going to die, but I didn't know. And so she told me to become not only vegan totally, but only eat raw things. When I said the family, they laughed. They said, I don't give you 2 hours to stand that kind of stuff. I did it. And in a question of 5 days, I had nearly no more pains in my spleen. So I thought it was something. I stopped all treatments. I decided to change everything. And then after, I decided that I wouldn't kill my patients the same way they had tried to kill me. So I studied alternative medicines around here in US, and so I became an ND, and which is not approved in France at all. So of course it caused lots of problems.
ND?
Naturopathic doctor.
Naturopathic. Yeah, that's interesting. I go to a naturopathic physician because I trust that person more with my medical conditions than I do the usual type of doctor who wants to just give you a bunch of pills or something. So I'm kind of hearing here that what would you say to this state, that we can heal ourselves?
Oh yes.
You'd agree with that?
Yes. Oh yes. But I learned at the beginning, of course, I simply replaced the usual treatments by natural ones. But with the years, I could see different stuff too, of course. We can do a lot by ourselves. I write books about that too. It's what I do now, as I am forbidden to be a doctor anymore in France. So I decided, I was told in dreams too, but I agreed with that I had to teach people what they could do for themselves and being alone. Yes.
You have books. I mean, Dan said that you... Yeah. How many... Our audience can look you up on Amazon or elsewhere?
Where do buy your books?
Yes, but only have been translated into English, so...
Oh, they're all written in French?
Yes. I've 38, I think, now.
38 books.
And lots of translation all over the world, but in English only 2. So...
And what are those
Well, that gives us 2 to start with.
Yes.
Then we learn French and read the other 36.
Yeah. Yes.
I actually took a lot of French, but unfortunately it was 30-some years ago. I just
it's easy to forget language.
What are the 2 books that have been translated into English?
So it's Facial Reflexology is self-care manual, and because I like to teach things people can do by themselves and can do on children, on family around. I tell you after why. I have a good reason on the dream. And the second one is about minerals. It's the English title is Colloidal Minerals and Trace Elements. It's special, and I needed to write this one too. And so, but I have a lot of other books, and now I am finishing a book about animals. Because, same.
Well, tell us about that book.
Reflexology for Animals, coming after a book about alternative medicine for animals, because so many are killed for nothing, and at home we used to keep them home, give them some stuff, natural stuff, and they were healed. So just the same. But I worked on that too because when I was still studying medicine, I had a very weird dream, insistent, so I had to take care of that, but I couldn't get what it meant at all at that time, telling me you have absolutely to learn all possible techniques to heal people without nothing. That were the words. So I said, what do you mean by healing people without nothing? But of course, generally the messages are short, clear, repetitive, so you are sure to get it, but translation you can get it years after, And it's only years after, during a training I got in anthroposophical medicine, that I could see my first session of reflexology, and I said, oh my gosh, that's something that can heal people without nothing, except my hands, and so. So that was the beginning of kind of research about that. And because they said, will come a time, soon, at that time, so it's already a long while, when you don't get any other possibility to help people. There will be no more chemicals, no more medics, nothing. And you need to develop such stuff, which I did. So I wrote the first book about reflexology in French, but always for people, no more... more kind of thesis.
The reason I was interested in your book about animals is that Dave's wife is a veterinarian.
Yeah.
And so I don't know what the veterinary science's perspective is on alternative medicine, but I think that would be something very interesting.
Oh yes. I come from Alaska. I was invited by the ICR. It's the International Council of Reflexology, which holds a big conference every 2 years somewhere in the world. This year was in Alaska, in Anchorage, and I had to speak about reflexology for animals. They are all reflexologists, but it's very powerful. Animals like it. It's easy to do, and
so will you define reflexology for me and for the audience?
Reflexology means you have all over the body. Most of all, it's known as foot reflexology, working on the soles, on the palms.
Is it close
it's
to
not
acupressure,
but it's a kind of acupressure. You have to work on certain zones related to a part of the body, be it an organ, a function, a part of the skeleton, and so. So that's what is practiced most of time here in US. But you have some other. I developed facial reflexology because it's so easy to do and you get a result immediately. So it's nice and the animals like it too. And but you have reflexology on the chest, in the back, on the spine, and so, which is on the spine. It's so easy to do for animals as well. So this kind.
How do animals? I think Dan was because Dan's a real dog person. You don't have pets right now, do you, Dan? But he had...
There's some invisible ones.
Yeah. So it's a cat. I guess it's a cat when it is invisible.
He had 3 dogs, though, that were all patients of my wife's. That's how we met, was at our veterinary hospital. So I know deep down he's a dog person. But where do animals fit into our world? Not just in the obvious places, but in the spiritual world, and the in-betweens, and so on. What do animals have a role
I
in
could
our
see some
evolution?
Yes, I had maybe I had weird experiences with animals I loved who have passed away, and even with a tree. That could be funny, yes, because I discovered that too. So. I had a difficult life. Well, that's my fault, because before coming, I had 3 beings offered me to choose between 4 different scenarios. I looked at that, but honestly, when you are on the other side, everything looks so simple and not going to make such a foot. So I imagined it was very hard to difficult myself, having to learn how to walk, to speak, go to school, university, and all that stuff just for 2 or 3 issues, which for me, from my point of view upstairs, looked something rather simple. You are not going to make such a mess with that. So I insisted to get the 4 of them. So of course, I had a rather difficult life. My fault. So... And at what time, when it was really difficult, I met friends who told me, go and see this guy who is a good seer, not official. He can maybe see something to help you. I said, okay, of course. I went to see the guy. And I was a bit surprised because he couldn't say anything. And at a moment I insisted, but tell me what occurs. He says, it's very weird because with you, I can't see anything for you. There is just a dog insisting to come here. So I said, oh, tell me more. Who knows? And so he described the dog, and it was my dog who had passed away 4 or 5 years before, who wanted to talk to me. Yeah. So I said, oh, so of course he felt a bit relieved, knowing that maybe he had seen something about me too. And so it was a huge German Shepherd. He died at 17, so very old. And the German Shepherd came and insisted to tell him things he did not want to tell me, because he said, really, it's not normal. What this dog is telling me resembles nothing. So I insisted, of course, and told me that my doggy wanted to say thank you when you had to leave for the weekend and you were so sorry for me to leave me alone, but in fact we had a small hangar in which he could walk around and get protected inside and so, but he loved food, and so he loved a lot apples and carrots. That was his best. And we used to prepare him a huge plate of the food he loved most, a lot of apples and so. And he said, I was so happy when you left because I could eat as much as I wanted. So you see such thing, you can't invent it. That occurred. It made me feel so, I love that.
Yeah.
And then I had a second experience of that kind, another bad time. Other people telling me, call this woman, she could help you maybe. So I called, she didn't know me, I never met her. And just the same, she began telling me, I can't see anything about you. So I insisted again, and she said, no, it's absolutely crazy, I don't know what occurs to me. And insisting a lot, she said, that's a tree who wants to speak to you. So that was, for me, more than surprising. I said, oh, could be interesting, tell me more. And she said, no, it's crazy what the tree tells us. And she said, this tree loved you very much, has been cut. And suddenly I understood. And he tells me that he loved so much to be your Christmas tree. Which was true. In fact, I had visited the Great Sequoia Park.
National Park.
Yes, Los Angeles in 80, something like that. I've taken back some seeds. One had grown in a pot and then bigger and bigger. And it was our Christmas tree in a big pot. And when I moved to southwest of France, we put it into the earth and he grew very high, in fact. And one day I had somebody helping me for my garden. And when I came back, he had cut the tree without asking me. I cried so much because it was really my tree, my baby tree. And so I felt so... It was an emotion to hear that my tree could come and find a way to tell me something. You see? It changed my way of looking at trees, even if I love them all the time.
Well, I think it says a lot about life.
Yeah.
And that life, including human life, is really connected with all animal life and plant life.
Yes. Can you imagine that a tree can find a way, consciousness of a tree can find a way of finding a channel to tell me a message that I couldn't get by myself, obviously. Or maybe, if it had been by myself, knowing me, I could have imagined that I had made it also. I know. So
sort of mind-blowing. I think
it was funny.
I think it was with Aleta when we talked about the Akashic Record. Remember a discussion about that? Can you, Marie, speak about the Akashic Record? The idea that everything that humans experience, and I suppose you'd include animals and trees, everything that has some consciousness, everything that is experienced goes into a vast library of experience.
I heard of that a lot. I read of that a lot, but I did not experience it. It's not... something I experienced.
I wonder if the reason we have what we call bad things is that if you have a library and your goal is to include everything from the bad to the very good, even the most boring, the most exciting, that if you wanted to have a real library, you would keep a record of everything of human
good
and others.
Bad.
And so that would explain things like Hitler, that would explain things like the Super Bowl MVP, at the top of human achievement, and then the very bottom, at least the way we view things good and bad.
Yes, that could.
That could explain why we have such a range of, and kids with cancer, that's another thing. It's how can you justify kids with cancer? There's nothing worse that you can think of in terms of...
lots of poisonous things that are given as food, vaccinations and all, that is sure. We are good at that. But, yes, they are... I have no direct experience of that. Mm-hmm. But I was taken at times to see past lives, sometimes very far away in time, which were so close to me that it's like a yesterday memory. And look at that and be shown something because it could be of interest, of importance for in any way. So it's not that general. I remember past life, which I definitely hated to see. I did not agree at all with what I have seen, of course. It was at least 5,000 years ago, but it was very hard I wouldn't tell it, because it was very hard for me to see that. I was forced, but it was as if I was on a glass, separating me from that guy.
Was it something you did in your life,
yeah,
or something
I
that
did.
happened
It
to
was
you?
me, and me. It was me in a past life that I definitely didn't like. And what was funny in that specific experience that I was forced to, I didn't want that at all, is that at a moment I just shout, because I couldn't do else, shout, "Stop it!" What he wanted to do, and he heard me. So that's something which was new. It only occurred one time. He stopped, looked up, and thought that one of his spirit had told him something. He thought definitely it was the Great Mother or so. It was just me. He, in future, I was amazed myself. But he stopped, and I could see it was twisted a bit, his life, from that moment. Twisting. So I guess that it's me only. I guess that at times it could be even possible to correct something of the past, if past ever exists. So I'm really a bit lost in the questions of time.
Is there a rule in place, do you think, that says do not interfere, or makes it very difficult to interfere and change your past or others' past?
I don't know, but I could see that it changed something. Anyway, didn't do what he was going to do. I was okay with that. And I could see a bit further in his life, and something had slightly changed. He stopped a number of such stuff, sacrificing people, animals, and so. And because he thought that a goddess had told him to stop. So I said, okay, I can be that for him if he wants. So that's something, but it occurred only one time, I don't speak of Akashic records about that. What did you mean, Aleta, about that?
I didn't.
Oh,
I don't remember.
Sorry.
Well, let's bring Aleta into this conversation in this way. So how did you get to know Aleta? How did you come across her? She came
Simply because we had in France at last a few episodes of Ancient Aliens. I loved that. I said, at last, we were many loving it, because at last we could see some UFO stuff in a good way. So that's how I heard about MUFON. I Googled, found MUFON, got inscription in it, said I had some experiences with that. And that's how Aleta came in touch with me, simply. And we talked, we Skyped a lot.
You were in France and she was here, so how did you come together?
With MUFON, Mutual UFO Network, we have a team called the Experiencer Research Team. And that's what we do. We just research by talking to experiencers and remembering what they say and trying to make some sense out of it. And so when somebody has experiences and they fill out the form on the MUFON website, they are assigned one member of the team to talk with the experiencer and find out what happened to them and just listen. And I was lucky enough to get the assignment to talk to Marie, and we've been talking. That's been several years, a number of years now that we've been talking.
So your contact with Marie, when you first met her, you knew anything about the past life situation. You didn't necessarily know anything about her natural healing abilities. It was because she'd had contact with the UFOs and maybe occupants of UFOs.
That's right. Basically, it was that one first thing that you told me about Marie, which was the triangle that you saw, and from there I started to realize that Marie had a whole lot of experiences besides just the few that she talked to me at first about.
And it helped me a lot when talking. The more we were talking, so the more it was coming. We used to Skype every week. So you see, it's a long while. And it put things together. I got the feeling that suddenly all these pieces which was totally apart, could come together and make something bigger. So it's a bit new to me too. I used to speak of such subject, not all that stuff, but it's linked, in fact.
I was reading an article the other day, which I think I passed on to Dave. It's called The Unified Theory of the Paranormal. So people tend to want to take paranormal subjects like ghosts and cryptids like Bigfoot and UFOs and say, well, they're all separate. And what this article is arguing is, no, they're not separate. They're all interconnected, and I think that's what I hear you saying as well.
But that's why I like to speak of experiences, not of ideas.
Yeah.
Because I'm not sure of my interpretations. I can say I think that, but even when I write down my dreams, I have a dream book since long, it's something very useful, because at times it takes years to have something occur which reminds you, I had dreams and think of that sort. Years ago you can find it and get indications and even cancels, which are so good. And so even in that book I write plainly what occurs, what I've seen, what I've been told, and under in italics what I think of it. Mm-hmm. So I need to separate my interpretations.
How do you... I've always been fascinated with dreams. Also, in fact, I've only written 2 books, not 38, but one of them was about how to control your dreams. A so-called lucid dream.
Yeah.
Are these lucid dreams?
Yes.
You're very interactive with whatever force or intelligence. Now, what is your feeling about
it's very
who
important
that force is? Who?
Most of time, I call them my guides. After with the years, you get very close, to such people, and so trust them too, because you had proofs that it was worth doing so. So sometimes they showed me warnings. I know it's true, but I am very positive naturally, so I never think it's so much or so long and so, but well, that's something else. But it's useful to know, because you don't feel anymore a victim of anything coming. You knew that you had to do that, you go through, you say, it's too long, it's too difficult, I will do it, but well, you know what it is, what's the meaning of that. So it's very important, and it helps really a lot to listen to one's dream. And even if you don't remember them at the beginning, if you begin writing them, a few words only, feeling you feel about that, and it helps. And the more and more you can hear what your dreams are telling you, it's very important. I don't trust at all the psychological point of view on dreams. For me, it's really crazy. More important, you have somebody in the Washington who writes very good books about that. He has been my teacher. I wanted to take a course with him as a dream teacher, and it's Robert Moss. He's really good at that. Robert Moss. M-O-S-S. He wrote very interesting books about dreams, conscious dreams, lucid dreams and all, practical ones for people who want to know a bit more. So I did that, but in fact it was what I used to practice naturally. It's very important, I think.
And so you said you don't agree with the psychological interpretation. Do you mean like Freudian?
Yes.
Maybe if you lose your teeth in a dream, it means someone will die, something like that, just very straightforward.
I am not really close to that interpretation.
Right. So you think that, is it more the emotional feeling or the...
Not really. I think that
what's
dreams
valid for you?
Dreams put you in touch either with your higher self, that's something, and more often with guides you're in touch with. So of course when you practice some kind of shamanism, it's easier too, because it's a way to contact you directly. And there are many kind of dreams. You can have warning dreams, which could be shown in images that you may have to interpret. It could be so plainly like life, exactly as it will be further on, or give you symbols, but not the symbols as they are interpreted in I am a psychologist too, but I don't believe in that at all. I never could see that.
It's too simplified.
I
mean, it doesn't apply to...
It's simply, everything is shrinking on the people, It's wider than that. It's huger than that. You can be taken in the wild space as well. It's very interesting, and you can learn a lot of things through dreams.
Are dreams prophetic? Are they...
Could be, yes, of course. And a lot of scientists and people or painters or musicians, most of this stuff is given through dreams. I know a very good musician in France. He always is given everything he does by dreams. I know a physicist who said he got lots of stuff by dreams. It was the same for Einstein. I got my first book, yes, by dreams. So that's very common. I mean, if you listen to your dreams, it could change your life directly. That's why sometimes, most of all when you have chosen 4 lives, of course, at the moment, one is finished, you don't know, but something forced you really to change your way. And so that comes very often through dreams. If you listen to them, I can tell you a very weird story more. At that time, I lost everything. My husband, I was with my little girl, I was in a place I didn't know, I had been obliged to move. Well, complicated situation, you know? Because the guy had gone without warnings with somebody else at the moment we had sold the house. I was in a small village in south of France because friends had let me this house for a while. And then I had dreams for 3 nights. The 3 nights for me works. And I was fed up with that because somebody I knew who was on the other side already since a while had taken a batch of friends around him and they were dictating me a book about shyness. I was not at all interested in shyness.
Was that in your dream?
In my dream. Uh-huh. It was lasting all night long. I used to wake up, drink water, no, so you can stop your dream, go back to sleep, and again. And my only solution in the morning for these 3 nights had been, because it was really obsessing me, to write a few lines, main stuff and all, just to get rid of that. And a couple of days after, very short after, I had no phone at home at that time, it was in the 70s, and a neighbor came and told me, I have a phone call for you. First I was surprised, of course, said okay, I came to her, and I had on the phone a Canadian publisher from Montreal telling me, I heard about you, I never wrote a book, I want you to write books for me. Of course, I said, I don't write books, so no, you make a mistake, obviously. That was all. And 1 week later, again, the neighbor came and told me, I have another phone call from the same guy for you. I came again, and the publisher told me, I insist, I want you to write me a book about shyness. And you have only 3 weeks to do that.
Wow.
And I heard myself say, okay, then you can imagine the state I was. That's how I published my first book. I had just to write my dreams. It worked, it was a good book, they say. So when you have published the first book, you can go on publishing other books. It opened me the way to what I had to write, I think. If not, I would never have imagined writing a book, in fact. Was not at all in my mind. So that's how things work.
For most of us, we don't recognize clear directions and symbolism. I would guess if you took the next 100 people you met and say, what was your dream last night? Most people would say, I don't remember. Some people even say, I don't dream at all, which of course is not true. But when most of us are not getting clear messages, how do you recommend that we kind of tune our brains to be receptive? Writing them down and recognizing them.
I would definitely suggest because it's the best method I ever saw, Robert Moss. Mm-hmm. It's really a very good one. I totally agreed with what he said because it's what I did spontaneously when I was young. So he was describing the same kind that I've done for so long with success, and his book is really nice to read, easy to read, and it gives yes, you have first to have a paper with you and take a few notes as soon as you wake up. Even if it looks crazy, you just write a few words. If you have enough time, you write it properly. If you have no time, writing a few words helps you remember when you want to write it properly at the next coming back from work, for instance. And then you note the date, which is important, and you give a title to your dream, even if it's nonsense. It can be anything. Okay. The more you do that, the easiest it is. It comes more and more. It's like opening, the way simply, and suddenly It's rushing. Much better. And at times you have no dreams at all. At times you have very important dreams. So it depends on.
And to you, what is a lucid dream? Is that a different type of phenomenon? I mean, when you get a lucid dream where you're aware that you're dreaming, a lot of people have never experienced that, or at least they think very rarely.
Yes, because you can remember to simply leaving your body when you sleep at night. You, as my daughter, when she was 3, used to say, I put down my body and I go and I do that and that. So that gives you lucid dreams, I mean memories of what you did during the night, which is a bit different. You can do lots of stuff like that.
Let's go back for a second to your meeting with Aleta and the reason that you got to know Aleta. So Aleta, it comes in your life because you've had an experience with UFOs. So
yes.
The question then becomes, where are these UFOs from? And if there are beings that are piloting these UFOs, and maybe there aren't, maybe they're just all like drones. Who are these creatures and why are they contacting you?
I don't know. This I definitely don't know. What I know is what I have seen. And experience with that, I had seen beings, yes, but separate.
What kind of beings?
For instance, one day, that was really, because it was a ceremony I was leading in an esoteric group. Leading more.
In a what group?
Esoteric.
Etc.
Oh, esoteric, okay.
And it was important. I was focusing a lot on what I was supposed to do. And suddenly I saw, and a lot of people, of course, not you like that, no. And suddenly I saw a tube going down, like that, translucent, about that size, diameter. And inside the tube, 3 big beings, clothed in white, and that was something, but the vibration with it, I was shaking all over the body, shaking and crying, not because I was sad or happy, because it was, I had to stop the ceremony, which we never do. I couldn't. Everybody could sense the vibration, a part of the vibration. I could just tell them, I'm sorry, but leave for a moment, we'll do that again after. And that was something, really.
Were these beings, did they look human or did they look...
No, they were definitely alien. They were big, but more than, I don't know your yards. Big,
Meter.
really.
How many meters?
I would say 2 meters and a half, about
so
high. 2 meters
feet.
and a half. And there were, one was like that, the other like that, the other like that. They were closed in this tube, whitish, really.
Nordic type?
Nordic type.
Like
So they
blonde hair, maybe?
Yes.
And
Yes.
very distinctively northern European looking, yes.
Yes, but really huge. And after that, I met them again in my shamanic journeys. So they are guides for me now. They are healers. They show me. They are special guides for different parts of the universe. They used to show me at times some kind of places. I not always understand why, but could be useful later on. I don't know.
Did they communicate at that moment when
they wanted
ceremony?
They wanted to stop the ceremony, and of course I did not. I went on. And after that, I discovered that I was wrong. I should not have. They came to stop it. It was really something with a good esoteric meaning, and it was something important, which used to change people, to help them in a better way, and I should never have given the ceremony for the specific woman who was there. But, of course, with all the people who were guests, I did it. So I learned that I should not. Well,
Marie, where were these beings from? Where did they come from?
I don't know. I didn't ask. Honestly, the problem for me is that I am in the same while very sensitive and very rational. And I feel it as a necessary tool for me to keep really grounded. If not, it would go in every direction. And so I feel the need deeply to stand to my experiences as they are and not try to get more when it's not really necessary. Every time I tried, I was not sure because I tried, so I am plainly an experiencer. We'll see after. Most of time, I get some explanations when needed. At times, I see things which frightens me really, and years after, I understand at least what it was, what it meant. But it was useful to know it before. For instance, before such thing is discovered, I was shown a specific grid in space that I could not understand at that time because it did not exist. I mean, people had not discovered that. And when I saw new discoveries about space, one day I said, oh, that's what I had been shown. Things like that, Sometimes it's just given to prove that what you are shown is true. To simply, a bit like when I water my plant, so that it grows. They do such things so that I could trust them, I think. Sometimes it could be useful, sometimes just for that, maybe. I don't really know. I don't ask really questions. They are not very talkative people.
So, Aleta, I have a question for you in terms of the number of what we're calling experiencers who you've interacted with. Marie, which will come as an irony to somebody who's skeptical, says, I'm very grounded, after she's just spent, 40 minutes telling us about all these things that are the definition of not grounded, at least in our mainstream thinking. We all feel, I'm sure we all agree, that Marie seems very grounded to us. But the point is she has a medical degree, 2 degrees, and I don't know what else. You didn't tell us about the rest of your background, but she's obviously very, very grounded in terms of Western science, what we call it. So, with your experience with experiencers, is this unusual?
Marie is unusual.
Mm-hmm. Is it because she is not afraid to open up about some of these things? Because we've got to assume that there are plenty of people who are very rational with all the things that we consider to be a rational person with normal lives and college degrees and everything else, but they're just very hesitant to share experiences. So
a lot of
I'd
people,
like to hear you talk about that.
Yes, a lot of folks really do share their experiences quite a lot with me. However, with Marie, she doesn't try to figure out things that she doesn't know. In other words, her groundedness is keeping things to the experience itself and not trying to figure out why it happened, who they were, what planet they came from, the ancient aliens way. They expand upon the actual happening. And she likes to stick with the actual happening instead of reading something into it.
Yes.
And I think that's what sets her apart from most folks. Want to know why, want to know who they were, and they go beyond the actual experience. She's very good at keeping that separate. That's separate, the actual experience. Sure, she's curious about everything.
Of course. I would like to know that.
She would like
know the answer to questions.
Well,
of course.
Dan and I keep hitting you with why questions. Who are they? Why? Because it's just natural. We'd like to know. We're very curious and interested. And what you seem to be saying is that it may be individual, even, these experiences. It may be for you and your tangled web that you've weaved up to this point that you have to do the work and figure it out yourself.
Yeah.
Is that
I got in touch with Aleta. Aleta is very good at listening people. I could never share that in France. Nobody knows. I told you, my mom did, my grandma, my husband did, but now there are no more there. Nobody knows, really, so I don't speak of that. It was so beneficial for me. It was really so nice to find somebody with whom I could really speak open-hearted and freely, without any judgment, and daring say things as they were, simply. Yes, that's really good. And meeting experiences around here was very useful for me to listen to their own experiences too. But the thing which led me to you, most of all, was this triangle thing, which left me totally puzzled for years and years and years, and there I wanted an explanation that of course we don't get really. There we begin to get some clues, maybe, possibilities, but...
Are you talking about you saw a triangular shaped graph?
Oh yes, but I saw things like that often, but that specific time was very weird. It was in, may I tell you?
Yeah.
Yes.
It
please.
was last weekend, February 91. At that time I had moved again to Southwest. I had before a clinic in Southeast near Nice and Cannes. And I had kept a lot of my patients. So 1 week or 2 weeks I was going back there. And so two Saturday every month I used to drive the same road back home to come to Toulouse. And so you first follow the Mediterranean Sea, and at a moment you go across a big mountain which is called in French Montagne Noire, which is Black Mountain. There is a small valley, a rather tight valley, which is a cut. So in one side the mountain, other side the mountain too. It lasts about 60 miles from the beginning to the end, a small city at the end which is called Mazamet. And so this night, it was always the same time. I used to go back as soon as I'd finished my consultation, so it was 10 p.m. about when I entered the Montagne Noire, as I used to do. Rainy, cold, and so back. And as soon as I saw the first slopes of the Montagne Noire, there was a huge triangle there. I said, oh my gosh, what's that? So a huge triangle about half size. The mountain, huge, is huge, with 3 lights, different colors on every, and a white light in the middle, and it was flashing lights. So as soon as I could, I stopped to see it, to look at that. I was a bit frightened because it was light, alone, and so, but much too interested not to stop. And so it was flashing. I tried to flash with my lights.
Communicate with it.
Yeah, nothing. So I decided to meditate, empty my mind, and maybe there could be a communication this way. Nothing. I felt nothing. A bit. So I decided to go on, began driving again. It's a very large road, many lanes. So, and driving, I saw that suddenly the triangle was following me. So when I drove, I stopped again. The triangle used to stop. So of course it took me a long while to drive the 60 miles, because I was stopping all the time. At a moment, I was even stopping in the middle of the road because I couldn't meet one car, nothing. It was a Saturday night, very busy, a lot of traffic, and that specific night, nothing. So I used to simply stop in the middle. At a moment, I went to open my trunk, take something warm on it, see if I had no camera. Also, of course, I had none. We had no iPhones at that time. And so that's what occurred. Every time we were meeting a small village or city, the triangle used to go up and behind the village and meet me again at the end of it. So that was quite funny. We played this way. And I was a bit worried because I felt really very lonely. It was a dark night, and I couldn't help getting out of my car and looking at that and asking, what do you want?
Why are you following me?
Yes, well, you're following me. It was funny, right on my direction, right halfway between the mountain and me. So that's it. And of course, it questioned me a lot.
Now, how did that end?
When we arrived at the city, at the end of the mountain, Black Mountain, it went up simply and stayed there. And again, I was in full traffic. So when I was back home, which was about 50 miles from there, I live on the top of a hill. My husband was a bit worried because I was very late, of course. And so we could still see the triangle with a binocular. So we could see them. So I wondered why, because after that I drove the same way many, many times in full traffic, never alone. So my question was, how could it be that suddenly there was nobody, not a cat, not a dog, nothing, just me and my car, and suddenly traffic again? That was my question to Aleta.
That maybe is where another Frenchman comes into his theory, Jacques Vallée, with the idea of the what does he call it? The reality between this and the other. I can't remember. There's a specific term he used I can't think of right now, which is a really good term.
Interdimensional? No, that's not it.
It's a different form of reality where just for you that night,
and my car,
and your car, and everything else that makes up your physical world, that craft or that intelligence was able somehow to just give you that reality. But also that, and Aleta, I'm sure, and Dan, that was right when all the Belgian triangles were very prominent.
It was that period.
Early 90s, and a lot of people saw this, so that gives credibility to your story too. You weren't the only one seeing these things.
No, because my husband could see it with the binoculars from home.
Right.
Yes.
So it was a shared reality,
He could
consensus
see
reality.
it.
But
We could see the three flashing lights and so far, but it was still visible.
So where did all the people on the highway go? Question. There's another why or where question that we can't help but ask, but we have to ask the questions.
Just to share something that's similar, I just got done investigating a case and submitting it where a guy was coming home late at night on a highway that usually is pretty well traveled, and he's the only person on the highway.
That's right.
And he's the only person who then sees three craft.
Oh, yes.
And so you wonder...
And that was around here, right?
Yeah, that was in Port Orchard, Washington. And it's like, well, where'd all the people go? And was he selected to see something that other people weren't selected to see?
I think that's the way it is. And I also think that the debunkers who say, oh, these are just craft that the military have, I don't think the military can make it just for you and take away all those other people.
And if they can, we have a whole bunch of other questions for
and
them
problems,
too.
yes.
Yes, no.
One other place I'd like to take us before we run out of time here, and I don't know what degree you want to share about this, because I understand there's some, I don't know if you'd call it confidentiality, but there's some restricted information that comes your way. You spent some time, and Aleta to spend some time on the Hopi Indian Reservation in Arizona. So talk a little bit about what your relationship is with the elders of the Hopi Nation.
It all came because, by chance, I'm very lucky in my life. Everything I wanted to do, I could do it. Everything I didn't want, I got it too. But well, it's balanced in a way, up and down. Okay, it's tiring, but it's nice in a way. And so at the time, I could get an apprenticeship with a native healer on the West Coast. And that was something fantastic for me. It was something I would have dreamed to do, and so I could get it. And it was very close to Hopi people. It was a Yurok tribe, so from Manchester to the Pacific Ocean. And so he used to visit Hopi people very often. I knew that. And then he died, passed away at a moment. And first time I went to Hopi land. And as I am lucky in this kind of subjects, the first person I met, I had a strong experience when in Old O'Reilly, I heard about that from him, but I was standing at a specific place. I came with 4 other people. I'd taken a guided tour, because it was forbidden to go by yourself. And so I stayed apart, of course, because I was not interested in what they were saying. I was interested in what I could feel. And suddenly I felt myself, I thought I was really plunged in the cliff, because I felt uplifted physically. I couldn't stand on my feet. I was shaking, and this elder was with us, saw it. And he came a bit laughing at me, telling me what occurs to you, and told him, oh, it's normal. You didn't see it was a shrine, the place of emergence, so it's normal what you feel. Okay. And I felt to ask him, did you ever heard about this guy? Of course, he was totally amazed. Of course, he wrote a book. I even have it with me in my house. And so that's how it began. I met the exact person I needed to meet. And so from that moment, I went every time I can. I go to Hopi Land, spend some time with them. And because it's a bit difficult to speak, you have to be very slow and not force nothing. So I have good friends there now, and they can speak to me openly, and took me to ceremonies. And so, because I had this apprenticeship, so that opened me the door, and I felt so interested by the Hopi people. That's the place I really wanted to be, and so we went with Aleta this time. So that's it.
What about the Hopi specifically was very much of a draw to you, a feeling?
I almost want to ask, what do the Hopi people know that the rest of us don't?
Yeah, that's what I was really asking, actually.
Yes.
To the extent you could share that.
Yes, I can, of course. I was lucky because they allowed me to some secret places that they don't show. So that's it. And you too, you could come with us as well. So they don't show that to tourists because they don't want it to be spoiled. But we could I could ask my questions too about what I could experience. For them it's so normal. That's it, in fact. What looks to us totally weird is normal for most native people. I mean people who live according to their traditional native people. I could meet the same things. I was lucky enough to spend 4 months in Australia for my work, and of course I wanted to meet them, the native there, and we could share it exactly the same. So that's so interesting. You don't feel alone. We are alone in the Western world because we have lost our traditions. So I guess that our guides try desperately to give them back to us, but we have been such a long time losing us and losing all that. But for them it's so normal.
And what is the common thread on some of those the Aboriginal people and the Hopi people, and is there a common theme and understanding about?
It's same. Mm-hmm. It's exactly same.
They're more in touch with the natural world.
Oh, totally, and they are linked to themselves, linked to each other, linked to the world. They are conscious of what they had to do to help this planet and people on it, and what is coming, what is the real history of it. And after, when Gary died, my teacher, he used to say that shamanism was bullshit, as a lot of native people say, and if in fact it's not, it's because they only heard about shamanism, so-called shamanism practiced at times by people who knows nothing about that. So of course. And so a dream, again, pushed me to have a look at the Foundation for Shamanic Studies here. And a dream really showed me the place and so on. And so I got an inscription with them, and I was so happy to have done it. It was really interesting. It was a supplement to what I have learned, which was very good. And I got all my teachings here in California and Washington State too. We didn't meet at that time, so I was very close near Union. So that was funny. So, and the person who had founded Michael Arner was the founder of that. He was an anthropologist, his wife too, and they spent their life traveling around the world to get teachings from native people all over the world. And they had discovered, which is absolutely true, that the tradition were same. The feathers, the costumes could be different, but they were doing exactly same things with same basic teachings. And it's what they are still teaching in the foundation. And that was so interesting, because when you know that, you understand it, you can travel all over the world and you can understand what the ceremonies which are performed in front of you mean, really, what they do. So that's something that I did appreciate to work with. Michael is gone now. He passed away last year. He was really somebody exceptional too, but they go on with that. So you see, I did it in Europe, but in Europe it was not the same at all. We have such a heavy background, religious background, I mean, that even these teachings were different. And so we were a bunch coming from Europe to take the teachings given here. Funny. So that's it. So all that stuff for me is meeting. All that comes together very easily, in fact. The more I learn, the more I understand what occurred to me from little one, you know.
Well, I've got one last question. See if Aleta or Dan have other questions. I'll let you go first if you have some, because my question is kind of an ending.
Go ahead.
I don't want to cut anyone off here.
The only comment I'd like to make is, wow. It's been a pleasure to have you as a guest, Maria.
Thank you.
And so many of the things you've talked about, the interconnectedness of us all, I think those are messages that can be stated over and over again. So thanks for being on our show.
Thank you.
Do very much appreciate you taking the time, both of you.
And Aleta too.
And my question is, in this world, it's very easy to get down, depressed. I mean, you look around, it's an epidemic, especially in this country, but across the world. It's very tough to find your way, and you alluded to and said specifically that people have kind of lost their ways in terms of, what are you doing here? Do you have a mission? What's the point of anything? You know, a lot of times we ask ourselves those questions, and you, as someone who, for lack of a better way of putting it, has a foot in the other realm, or at least you've seen it, felt it. What can you tell people who are feeling down and depressed, like they have no power, like their life is meaningless? What can you tell them to change or do in the way they act and think that's helpful for them to feel like they have some meaning in their lives?
Yes, I do think it's because we have been cut from our own roots and cut from ourselves too. So being cut, we don't get anymore the help we are supposed to get from our spirit helpers. When you don't care about them anymore, the times they are depressed too when they leave.
Makes sense.
And so when life, you are just like what's the name? I know that name. You know, body with a file.
A puppet?
Yeah.
A marionette.
Same word. When you are just feeling like a marionette, you know, with the wings, and you take blows, and you don't know why, how, I'm unlucky, which is true. So of course you are depressed, it's normal. And if you add to that bad food, lots of chemicals which change your metabolism too, all this stuff and waves, lot of things cut you from yourself. And if you are not linked to yourself, of course you feel powerless, and you are. But it can change, of course. I do think that spiritual practice, I don't mean religious practice. Spiritual practice doesn't mean corpus of beliefs. It's experience. See things. Try to understand. Go in. Learn. Listen. And so that helps a lot. I remember reading a book when I was 20, which changed my life at that time. It was on a shelf. I felt drawn to it. It can occur to anybody. Somebody, you are drawn to read something. You open it and it's exactly answering your questions of that time. It doesn't mean that when you do something, it will be the same your life long. Well, I have been a member of lots of staff of associations, spiritual association and all, which were all interesting, but at the time very quickly I needed to leave. Not because I didn't like it anymore, but because life is walking one step, not feeling I am well here, so I stay here until I die. That's something that I think a lot of spiritual researchers forget, maybe, that we have to walk. And even if we take the wrong way, we learn something. We can come back and change. It's not important. The importance for me is to walk. And even when at times I was really stuck in lots of bad issues and feeling how can I get rid of that, what helped me is to remember that I had decided to take that. Sure, I am lucky. I do feel blessed because I remember clearly that I decided I want to take all that. Of course, I understood why. Upstairs, my 3 big guys showing me my lives said at that time, it will be much too difficult. I remember they told me it will be much too difficult to take the 4 lives. I remember that as a kid, I just did that with my shoulder. No, are you kidding? It's nothing. So quite often in my life, I remember that I saw that differently from the other realm, and that it definitely looked nothing this way. And it could be helpful to meditate, go a bit higher, have a higher look about things, and see them maybe in a different way. It helps at least during the tough times when you get the feeling you can't get rid of that. There is always a mean, in fact. And when you feel linked to your higher self or anything higher than you, it's much easier. You get helped too, all the time. Even when there were times I thought I should die. And I didn't want because I had a daughter, and I didn't want to leave her alone, that's all. But, and it's a game to life, in a way. So we try to play the best way about that, and there's a strategy with yourself, with your spirit guides. But when you begin to build a relationship, when you begin feeling them, building a relationship. With the shamanic training, I have 2 animal spirits, and I could build a very strong relationship with some of them, and it could be fun too at times, You can feel yourself laughing at very hard stuff. So there are lots of ways, and I think that for me shamanism was very good. But probably it's not for everybody, but you have to feel, to try, to look, and not be stuck in one way. It's what I would say.
Well, thank you, Marie, for being with us again, and Aleta for coming back and joining us here. And we'll see you again on another episode of Anomalies.
Thank you very much to both of you.
So you're a joy to be around. So are you, Aleta.
Oh, thank you.
Very fascinating person.